Uncle Benji here. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're continuing on with the oral history of my collection, and we actually have a two-pack for you today. We're going to talk about a couple different albums, and these are both old school albums. We're going back in the day into the 90s. This is a bread and butter era for me. You know, I grew up in the 90s and listening to hip hop, especially in the late 90s when I really got into it. And these albums I'm going to talk about are from the artist O.C. I have O.C. Jewelz right here. This album came out in 1997. And then I also have O.C.'s 1994 album, Word Life. These are two classic albums to me. I haven't had the vinyls forever, as we've talked on the channel, you know, many times. I didn't start buying vinyl till about 2013. So for most of the time when I was listening to these albums, I had them on CD. The CD right here for Word Life. And then for Jewelz, I lost the jewel case at some point. So I just have the CD and the booklet that came with it. But man, these got so much play for me back in the day. And O.C. is an artist that, you know, a lot of people that study 90s hip hop are aware of, but he still is an underappreciated artist, and a lot of people that haven't fully gotten into 90s hip hop, especially kind of New York underground hip hop. He's an artist that you really need to pay a little more attention to, dig deeper into his discography, especially with these two albums, because like I said, they are true classics, and it's hard for me, or really should be hard for any O.C. fan, to say which one is superior. Like, I have no problem if people prefer one or the other, but these are both albums that it's, you know, neck and neck as to which one you prefer. And there's different reasons why I love each of them, and I'm going to talk a little bit about both of them today, and about O.C. and what his music meant to me. I didn't really start listening to O.C.'s music until probably about 99. I was really getting more into hip hop like my freshman year of college, my second year in college, like 98, 99. That's when I really went from someone who liked hip hop and bought stuff that was, you know, relatively popular or you could find quite easily, to someone who's really digging deep and going into different underground scenes that existed. And his crew that he was a part of, D.I.T.C, really got into their music, I think, a lot through listening to first Gangstar and DJ Premier, and that kind of gave me a window into D.I.T.C. Even though DJ Premier wasn't technically a member of D.I.T.C, he did a lot of work with a lot of the members, and I think I got into their music first, and then through some of his collaborations led me to get into a lot of D.I.T.C. artists. And then also finding out later that he was basically like a third member of the group Organized Confusion with Pharoah Monch and Prince Poe. So going back way to the early 90s, he was making music associated with those guys. They were putting out music in 91, 92, I think, that Organized Confusion first came out. So he was around in that scene. And even when Word Life came out later in 94, he was drawing a lot of Nas comparisons from what I hear at that time. And I can see why. Different MCs as far as subject matter, but guys who really took the craft seriously, rhymed over a lot of similar type of production. And yeah, I mean, that's the type of level that people were putting O.C. on. If you know, the 93, 94 era of hip hop, like Nas was really revered as the next great thing, hip hop, the hope for hip hop. So for O.C. to draw those comparisons, like, speaks highly to what type of artist he is. But we're going to start off and talk a little bit about Word Life, as this is the first album that came out chronologically in 94. This edition here was a really cool vinyl edition that they put out recently. Vinyl Me Please, no longer in existence, but this was something I got from them when they were. A really great pressing. Vinyl's really pretty itself. But to talk a little bit more about Word Life, like, it's largely produced by Buck Wild, who's, you know, one of the preeminent D.I.T.C. producers. He produced 8 out of the 14 tracks, And there's some things that he does on here that really left a strong imprint on me as a listener, and also left a strong imprint on a lot of other producers. I'm not saying necessarily he was the first to do this particular thing I'm about to talk about, but he was definitely the one that kind of brought it into my mind as something that you could do. And what I'm talking about with him is making intro beats on some of his beats. Like the first several measures of the song, he'll have a beat playing, nobody rapping over it, and then it will just transition into the actual beat of the song that OC's rapping over. But man, he had a great way of picking out incredible little intro beats. And a lot of the time I'd hear the intro beat and I'd be like, man, I want to hear somebody rhyme over that. But, you know, even not getting the rhymes, even just getting that little intro beat, it was still just such a cool flex for a producer to do, because it's almost like saying like, hey, I can just throw this beat out and not even have anybody rhyme over it and just put it as the intro. That's how much heat I got. I don't need to use that sample. I don't need to make a beat out of that. So looking at songs on here like Born to Live, Point of Views, Let It Slide, those are those examples of beats on here where Buck Wild is doing that and really endeared him to me as a producer. But you also have some other fabulous producers on this album. You got Organized Confusion producing 3 tracks for him. So, you know, Pharoah Monch and Prispo, also amazing producers as well as rappers. So they're producing stuff for OC. You got Lord Finesse producing a song on here. And you got OG, another D.I.T.C producer, producing a couple songs as well. I mentioned Born to Live. It's a perfect example of the type of MC that OC is. Very personal, talking about growing up in Brooklyn. And, you know, while he's from an area environment where he saw crime and stuff growing up from a young age, you hear this song and he's talking about a guy in the community that made sure all the kids were playing Little League Baseball and getting their stuff together. So it really kind of shows you, like, whatever you think of an environment people grow up in, there's regularness to it, you know, it's just like anybody else. So that definitely, to me, as a person in Indiana listening to hip hop records, thinking, oh, I'm listening to this hardcore New York stuff, and then he's talking about growing up playing Little League Baseball and, you know, a friend on the block getting hit by a car and passing away and the impact that had, you know, how deep that was on his youth, you know. So really cool personal song. He names drops so many people on this song that he grew up with, and it's just seems very natural, you know, it seems like he's talking to you. And that's a lot of OC's style. He's a very accomplished rapper, but a lot of his rhyming style just kind of sounds like he's talking to you. It really grabbed me though right from the start, the song Ozone. Like that beat on there from Buck Wild, just chef's kiss on that one. It's just an incredible beat. And at that era, I was really listening for stuff that had the kind of production that moved me. And that one certainly did. I mean, it has the Prodigy sample on the hook. Prodigy's been sampled like so many times for different hooks, more than anybody else he's been sampled, and this is a prime example of how people used clips from Prodigy verses like in the right way to be the hook for their producer to scratch in on that. So that's an early highlight of this song that really got me straight into OC, like when I started listening. And then you got the obvious classic on here, Time's Up, that was immortalized by Eminem, used in the movie 8 Mile. It was already a song that was definitely the biggest song off of this record and really resonated in underground hip-hop scenes. The lyrics on the song, he has lots of clips on here that have been sampled by other artists to make their hook lines from OC on this song. So, you know, and that's when you know, as an artist, especially during this era, that you're putting down some iconic verses because people are chopping those verses up and taking choice lines from them, making their sample for their hook. So that's a great example of that song, how it aged and found life in many different ways. But OC's just, you know, rapping his ass off and really showing you how seriously he takes this, you know, putting the art form over the money at this time. There was a lot of rap that was very serious. It got later, you know, in the era when this album came out, the Jiggy era stuff was really starting to change. And, you know, you can see OC's style change a little bit between the albums. but definitely on Word Life, he's very serious about what he's doing as an artist, and you can tell that he loves doing it. He's got a lot of great storytelling tracks on here too. You got Constables, you got another song called Story, and you got Let It Slide, which is just the absolute jam. Probably my favorite song on this project. It has a hook on there with Pharaoh Monch on the hook. And I mean, I'll repeat this like all the time, just randomly. I let it slide, I let it slide, I let it slip on by. I let it slide, I let it slide, I let it slip on by. Giving you one last try to kill it with the eyes. And it's just such a great statement of, you know, you're out wherever you're at, on the subway, at the bar, walking around, and you got people that are just ice grilling you, making eyes at you, you know, and it's like, what, do you want to start something or not, you know? So it's just, you know, a young man's statement of the world, being out there, and it turns into this really great hook, and then the Keep On Walking sample. Like, it's just the beat, the lyrics, the pictures he paints on it, the situations, the storytelling. It's just an amazing song that I could never get tired of. You know, there's lots of highlights from this album. I've mentioned several of them already, but that one is really special to me. And then you got No Main Topic, which is just, at this era, as good of a streaming consciousness song as you can find. I mean, this type of rapping is really prevalent now, and then later in the 90s, early 2000s, stream of consciousness became such a big thing, especially in the underground. And what OC's doing on No Main Topic is just like masterclass in rapping and masterclass in stream of consciousness rapping. And so influential because there weren't really a lot of people doing that. People were rapping or rapping about other specific things, making love songs, you know, all sorts of different things, but there wasn't too many people really doing the stream of consciousness in that way that OC is doing on No Main Topic. So that's a little bit about that album, and over time, it might be my favorite slightly. The vibe is just really consistent and hard, and the highs are like so super high. But when we talk about Jewelz here, we're talking about just a production masterclass. I mean, the producers that OC assembled for this album, it's really, for this era too, is just really, really special. And, you know, this album, I don't think it was like a huge hit or anything, but there's a lot of production value that went into it. Hip-hop heads really revere it because of just the star-studded nature of this album and the guests on it too. I mean, you got Big L as a guest rapper on here. You got Freddie Fox on 2 tracks, which I'll talk a little bit more about both them and their performances on here. MCs that really fit perfect with OC. D.I.T.C, Big L's definitely in D.I.T.C. Freddie Fox, kind of loosely a member of D.I.T.C as well. On here, DJ Premier kind of executive produces it. And the reason, like when I said earlier, Primo kind of got me into them, I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, I got into this album first and then backtracked and got into Word Life. So it was probably about 99, this album that I got into it. This album came out in 97. So I was kind of going back and listening to older D.I.T.C stuff, anything that DJ Premier was affiliated with. And DJ Premier had 4 beats on here and incredible productions on. I'll talk a little bit more about those. Buck Wild came back and had 3 beats on here. The Beat Miners contributed 3 beats. Another production duo from the 90s that's incredible and worked with Black Moon and Duck Down, so in a different kind of underground crew that the Beat Miners came from. OG came back with a couple tracks. Showbiz has a beat on here, another one of the D.I.T.C producers, and then Lord Finesse comes back and has another beat on here as well. Big L appears on the song Dangerous, which is just an absolute banger. You know, it's a Beat Miners, kind of an old school beat, and they're both just flexing on this track, going back and forth, and this is like at the height of Big L just being that guy, and has some really iconic lines on here, and OC holds his own as well, and it's an incredible song. And you go right in to the very next song, Win the G, and it just presents this situation of rapping at a big circle of people who are trying to win the G for putting up the best rap performance and dissing the other rappers, and Freddie Fox, like this is just him in his wheelhouse, just really with his booming voice and presence on the mic. And if you know Freddie Fox, he was the guy that was known throughout all this era of a guy you do not want to mess with. You do not want to start a fight with Freddie Fox. A lot of people talk smack, but hey, like he'll snuff you out if you're saying the wrong thing or you show up in the wrong place and you've had words for him. So Freddie Fox was a very intimidating figure in mid-90s hip-hop, and didn't do a ton of guest appearances, didn't put out a lot of work. So having him on here, and then later on a song, Mug, that's produced by DJ Premier, 2 incredible guest appearances from him, and 2 also incredible beats from Premier. Premier also produced the first couple songs on here. My World, just an incredible song, maybe the best song in OC's catalog. It's just the essence of hip-hop, you know, like a really aspirational song of trying to be the best and get to a level where you can take care of yourself off this art form. You know, it's My World, that braggadocio, and it's just an immaculate beat by Primo. And then you go into the very next track, War Games, that has Organized Confusion on the hook, and this just piano stabs beat from Premier that's just iconic, classic Premier, one of my favorite DJ Premier beats of all time, War Games. To start off with those 2, Lord Finesse closes it out with a beat on Jewelz. It's just immaculate, and that's maybe the best song on here as well. There's a lot of arguments, a lot of high points on this. And Lord Finesse also on that last track has an intro beat, very similar to what we were talking about on the previous album with Buck Wild. So it's just an example of, you start to see other producers using it more. And again, not to say that Buck Wild was definitely the first one to do it, but he definitely popularized it to me, and it became a big part of his style. On his 3 beats on here, he offers up a couple more incredible intro beats, so you get those couple bonus beats, intro beats from him, another bonus beat from Lord Finesse on that intro beat. So just the production on this thing is so crazy. And OC has some love songs on here. He has straightforward rapping about rapping songs. He has the collaborations. It's not quite as lyrically impressive to me as Word Life for different reasons. Just the highs may not be as high quite from OC straight rapping, but the songs that he makes, like, he really shows how accomplished and how he's grown as a songwriter, and getting all the different producers in here to just bring some incredible work really makes this album shine and has a gleam and shimmer on it. So it's very appropriate. It's called Jewelz, because that's really what you get out of this album over time, listening over and over again. I think that's part of the reason I probably prefer Word Life a little bit. It just seems a little bit more depth to it lyrically. It's a little bit more abrasive and harder, and I think over time that's just stuff I appreciate more. But if you just like put them on first time listen, I would almost expect people to prefer this one first, because it's just so shimmering and so well produced, and the collaborations are so great. But man, like, you really cannot go wrong with either of these albums. They are both truly classics. Make sure that you're aware of these albums. OC has other albums in his catalog. I have other CDs from him as well, later albums that he put out. But these are really the best that he has to offer, and on kind of a different level from his later work, even though I still liked and owned some of those albums. But, you know, we want to mix it up on the channel a little bit. Most of the stuff I talk about is going to be from the last 10 or 15 years. But I got a lot in my collection from older stuff. And this was just one that just kind of felt right to do today, to go back and highlight an artist, OC, from the 90s that not everyone is probably aware of. And those of you that are, you know what I'm talking about. You know how great these albums are. But if you're not, you know, add these to your queue and make sure you listen to them. Make sure that you're tapped in and get more into, you know, maybe D.I.T.C and some of the artists that are associated, some of the producers that I mentioned on here, because there's a lot of connectivity between that crew and a lot of great work that came out throughout the 90s. So That's the video for today, y'all. Until next time, Uncle Benji, peace out.